Welcome back, gamers. Skeletos here, and we have yet another video for you today. And I want to talk about the upcoming Halloween the Game live stream, which is going to be on Tuesday, July 14th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And I want to give you my thoughts on what exactly they're going to discuss. I think there's a few key things that they will definitely be hitting, and I think there will probably be a couple other things that I wouldn't be surprised if they addressed, even if it's super quick. Now, the big few things I think they are going to talk about are, if you look way back into the multiplayer announcement video where they discussed kind of the breakdown of multiplayer and how everything would work, at the end of that they talked about more details coming soon. And on this there were a few things listed. It was character progression, character traits, customization, proximity chat, and more. And I do think these will be the big things they're going to kind of hit on. I guess we'll wait to see how in depth they go. I would expect the live stream probably to be from anywhere from like a half hour to maybe an hour and a half. That just feels kind of like the right amount of time to address the set things they choose to address, as well as maybe take a few community questions. And they've had on their Reddit page that they have been taking questions for a little while, so we'll have to wait and see for sure. But the first one being character progression, I do think they'll give us a little bit more details on this, because kind of thus far we don't really know a ton about characters. And I would also loop in character traits kind of in the same thing. I think these kind of go hand in hand. This is going to be your metagame as they kind of break down how exactly each character will play, what makes them unique from the other characters in the game that are playable. And I believe that this is mainly going to refer to the civilians, but I also think that maybe they will talk about Michael in this mode as well. Are we going to have multiple Michaels? How's that going to work? We've already seen a couple of the different skins that Michael's going to have, but what we don't know is are they going to play the same or not the same? And I do think some of this maybe they would talk about with single player as well, but I would kind of expect the majority of the Q&A to be focused on multiplayer. That'll be the big thing I think they talk about, and also kind of looped in with that progression also is customization. I think that's kind of a good catch-all for talking about cosmetics, talking about things that you can unlock to different challenges, etc., and as well as also how can you customize your character with skills, perks, etc., etc. I think all of these things kind of go hand in hand, and I do think they will break it down a little bit more. And lastly on that list, I do think they will talk about proximity chat. It feels odd that they had to list that to begin with, but I think they want to make emphasis on like how it's going to work, because up to this point I don't believe we know how. Personally, I would hope that Michael will be able to communicate with the civilian characters. However, I would also not be surprised if they make it so that only civilians can talk with each other and only Michael can hear the civilians talking, versus that one-to-one interaction between Michael and the civilians. So we'll have to see what they say about that. A few other big things that I do think they will discuss, and this I kind of gathered based on looking through the Reddit post of all of the community questions. I think they're definitely going to address bullying and also address rushing. These are two things that are always talked about when any new ASIM comes out, especially with TCM, and how all of that went. So I do think they will talk about pretty in depth, their plans for rushing, their plans for bully squads. We've seen, some gameplay thus far, obviously with packs and other gameplay videos that they've posted, and they've even stated multiple times that they have plans to address this. So I do expect them to kind of go into a little bit more detail about that as well, especially since they stated they will have tips on how to play Michael, which is pretty good. So we'll see what they say about that. I do think they will also talk about some maps, because we also just got the teaser for the third official map, the Orange Grove Estates. I think they're gonna potentially tease another map. We'll see if they do a whole nother tease, given we just got the third map teaser. I think at the very least they'll probably tell us how many multiplayer maps to expect at the game's release. I believe Killer Clowns released with 5 maps. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure on release it had 5. So I would really hope that Halloween will have at least 5 as well. If they don't, I do think that will actually be a little bit of a disappointment, because maps are huge, and honestly that I could go into a whole other video just talking about maps alone, so we'll keep it brief here. But yeah, I do think they will discuss maps and hopefully give us a number on how many to expect at launch. I mean, there's still basically 2 months till the game comes out, so there's plenty of time for more maps to get teased and announced. Another really big question I think that they will address is role queue versus preference queue. How does the game select who will be Michael and who will be a civilian? How is this going to work? Can you queue with friends? Well, yes, you will obviously be able to queue with friends. Honestly, I shouldn't say obviously, because given how Rush Week was, we're going to hope that Ilphonic will be we'll make a better choice about that. But anyway, I think that you're going to obviously be able to queue with friends, and it'll just be interesting to see how Michael is chosen. So I really hope that they tell us more information about that. And the last thing that I think they will for sure address is whether or not there will be a Nintendo Switch 2 port down the road. There hasn't been anything on it yet, to my knowledge. Not even any dev answer. If I'm wrong about that, let me know in the comments, but I don't think anyone has ever discussed the Nintendo Switch 2. I know sometimes a lot of games do come out late for the Switch. Obviously, we saw that with Friday the 13th years and years ago, so we'll see if Switch is in their plans or not. But yeah, those are the things that I would bet they are for sure going to talk about. A few others that I wouldn't be surprised if they discussed are whether or not they will dive into other Halloween movies being in the game. I do have a feeling maybe they will talk about this, given how on the limited collector's edition pre-order picture, there was pretty good evidence that they are maybe going to be teasing another Michael skin. So from a more recent movie, I guess we'll see if they want to save that information for this, or if they want to drop that information at a later time. So I think if they are going to get into the whole other Halloween movie discussion, I bet it will be probably brief, but I do think it will be addressed. And yeah, those are kind of the big ones I would expect. A few other things that I could see them maybe quickly discussing would be Shirtless Myers. People are going to be asking, it's going to be spammed in the Twitch chat. People are going to be talking about Shirtless Myers. No, it will not be coming to the game, but I could see them kind of having a laugh about that. I do think they'll probably still talk about different unlockables, whether that is a la the Jarvis tapes or Pamela tapes, or even if this is more of a challenge type unlockable thing. Obviously TCM had its quote-unquote unlockables, very bland. Killer Clowns, I think, did a really good job with their challenges and unlockables for the game, so I would hope they kind of address this. And I think this would also tie into the single player mode, as well, as we have learned for sure that playing and beating single player will unlock things to also use in the multiplayer side of the game. So I bet they kind of address this a little bit. We'll have to wait and see what extent they do. I also would bet they will talk about cosmetics in general, because we have seen a few different cosmetics, and obviously with the announcement of the collector's edition, we know that it comes with civilian cosmetics. So I definitely think they will wrap all this together and put it in a little discussion for us to learn more. And then I have 3 more things which I think they might touch on. The first one being cross progression. I know this is going to be a question a lot of people will want to know eventually, and I would expect them maybe to address that. Maybe they've already mentioned cross progression somewhere and I've missed it, but I know that is something that people posted on the Reddit page, and cross progression is such a big thing into the modern gaming world. I would not be surprised if they talk about it, whether it is or is not going to be a thing. And another big one I also would expect them to talk about is potentially the voice actors. We have a few announcements of a couple of the characters who are, in their voices. We have Spencer Charnas of Ice Nine Kills, we had Christina Klebe, and a couple of others. So we'll wait and see if they, Lori, we know Lori's voice actress, so we'll see if they choose to announce all the other characters in the game or not. But I think this is a fun thing that fans like to learn and talk about, just because it's neat. So we'll have to wait and see about that. I would expect Scout Taylor Compton to have some sort of a role for a character. Maybe she's DLC down the line. We'll see. I also would expect Daniel Harris to somehow be involved eventually, but who knows. And lastly, the one thing I personally really hope they talk about is I hope they discuss private matches or custom games in some form, with kind of the whole discussion about physical media versus digital media and all that jazz. I would sort of expect them potentially to talk about how, if and when down, hopefully 10 plus years down the road, when servers do go offline, will you still be able to play a private match, custom game, etc., etc. And not that I'm sure this game will have a huge competitive aspect to it with tournaments or whatever, but custom games in general are nice to have, and hopefully they works smoother than TCM's did, because those ones were a little rough at times. But yeah, these are kind of the big things I would expect the devs to talk about in the upcoming dev stream, which will be on Illphonic's Twitch channel. And yeah, what do you guys want them to talk about? Is there any burning question that you have for them? Let me know in the comments. And yeah, thank you all for watching. If you like this video and want to see more, please consider liking and subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.